And we're live, Nathaniel and I. We've spoken to each other before, but on Koraniyule, he has kindly agreed to share with us his thoughts on masculinity and leadership.
Thank you.
Did I say the right thing?
No, that's fine. I mean that's certainly what's on my mind. I might uh today was kind of an interesting day because it was the first day that I kind of stopped working and I got to when I was sitting and reflecting, I got kind of upset about uh Christmas and about masculinity and leadership in the church and things like that. And uh, so I got pretty upset on social media. And I texted a bunch of people that bothered me. And then I had some trouble in the house, which is normal enough with children. And so I got done with all that and I prayed for 2 hours. And now here I am. So I might need some prompting to kind of get me going.
Well, it
To kind
sounds
of,
like you've been thinking about the very subject that we've been discussing, so you're well prepared. Let me share with you my thoughts to help you
okay.
get going. So, um, apart from having to be male, I think the essence of leadership for, I think, any situation is the emergence of a leader and
Yeah.
the
How would you
idea.
define how would you define a leader? Because you don't want to
Well,
use the
either the
definition.
leader asserts authority over the people around him, or he is chosen. And I suppose for people um, who are in need of a leader, they will think, well, um, he must be the person who knows the way, because in terms of leadership, it would be, you know, having a particular destination and knowledge the um, of the road, the path to
Right.
the destination. So it could be a dog who knows the way, or a child. But you have to know the way, and then I guess if you want to be leader, you have to show that you know the way. So I guess the little dog would bark and draw attention to itself, to the people, and then start running and hope that somebody will follow. Um, and for ordinary humans, you would have to say something like, "I know the way," and what happens
Right.
when
Well,
others
I
say,
mean,
"I know the way too." You're some insignificant so and so, and you're stupid. We have to anticipate the problems of, or you're just a child. How could you know the way? Or you're a
right.
woman. You couldn't possibly know the way, and we
Well,
we
that's
disdain to follow you, even if you
right.
did know the way.
Um, I mean, as always, I think that Islamic thought is a little overly simplistic in this area because, I mean, I separate authority and leadership, and just being somebody who knows the way isn't really the same as a leader, you know. Authority is really the person who commands and you have to obey out of obedience. But leader is more of the person that you voluntarily obey. And usually you see that reflected in governance because usually you'll have an authority figure that elects a leader. They're the ones who choose it in um, any natural example. For instance, you can see that in the Old Testament. One of the best examples is Pharaoh electing. Yeah, there's a couple different kings like this throughout the Old Testament, like the Book of
Well,
Esther,
he's already
and
king, so I guess he
he's
has
king,
to.
so he elects. Slow down. So he elects Joseph, the patriarch. Joseph, the patriarch, actually leads the country because he recognizes in Joseph wisdom, and then he elects him to lead the country, and then Joseph leads the country. So he said, "You're second to me in nothing but authority," but he's first in leadership, and that's the biggest thing. And it's also the biggest thing is like in the Western world, we have a problem where we don't really know what we're supposed to be doing, and we really don't know who we're supposed to be listening to. You know,
It's a
whenever
saying
they
that
talk,
the wisest person, and nobody ever thinks to say, well, we would like a wise leader. How do we identify wisdom?
Yeah, wisdom is ideal, but even wisdom is not necessarily what makes, the best leader. I mean, you need certain traits, certain rare application virtues like courage and magnificence in a leader
Well,
that you don't
just
necessarily get.
communication skills and a bit of, basic psychology
No, I
to
mean,
know.
well, that's a great way to be manipulative. I think here's the thing. So me and you kind of got into an argument over monarchy because you think that monarchy is an anachronism, right?
Yes.
Yeah, see, I don't, because a monarchy is just means one person above. That's what it means. It means one
Yeah,
person
it
in
could be
authority, one
president
person.
or monarch, couldn't it?
I think, well, the reason a president is not a monarch is because he's not above in the same way that a monarch is, because the monarch's functions in the United States, as one example, are split between the three branches, because a monarch is the ultimate judge, he's the ultimate legislator, and he's the ultimate executive, but they split it out and complicate it
And call it
specifically so
separation
that,
of powers. But the
yeah, and the
point is
reason,
that the American president can be impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors, while there is no way of removing an absolute monarch other than through violence, as we know from the English Civil War, when Cromwell presumed to try King Charles, Charles I, and Charles first demanded, "By what right do you, Oliver Cromwell, have the right to try me?" And actually, Cromwell didn't have an answer, but he executed him anyway. But the point is that there was no, standard procedure to deal with kings you don't want, except to remove them by violence. And so, if it wasn't by a commoner, it would be by another rival royal
no, I
family.
mean the standard procedure for removing a king you don't want is patience, you know. Whereas because when you have something that is so ultimate, then it really does change from person to person. But like in the American system, the problem is the president doesn't dictate very many things. He doesn't have very much real authority or power. And so when he changes, it doesn't change much. It really doesn't. It's just it's almost an entertainment show, which
Well,
has kind of
it's
been.
the political parties that George Washington warned Americans against. I don't know if you read his farewell speech, Nathaniel, but he did say,
I've read it.
don't you have
I
great,
venture to
great.
say I've read a lot more about the founding fathers, American presidents, and American history than you have.
I'm prepared to concede that possibility, and so you will know that George Washington warned Americans against political parties, and what have
Yeah, and many
Americans
things.
been doing? They've just
Well,
ignored him.
what he was talking about was not the modern political parties, as I pointed out to you before. I mean, just so you understand this, call. I wanted to be president at some point in my stupid life, and I read there was a lawyer in Washington State that kind of like took me under his wing a little bit, and he bought me a whole bunch of biographies, and I was already reading a whole bunch of biographies and books about American presidents, and so I learned a lot about American presidents. And when I moved to Tennessee, I took all those books into my front yard and I burnt them. That's kind of how I, um, in my backyard actually. It's kind of how I introduced myself to the neighborhood. It was all these books from Last Lion about Churchill, all the way down to Truman, where I started, Lincoln, who's the worst president we've ever had, and just all of them, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, John Quincy Adams. I know a lot about them. And the thing is that the story doesn't end with George Washington. Also, the words George Washington is using is not the same thing. He talked about factions, which is different. What he was actually talking about, which is what I pointed out to you before, is he did not want the ruling class to be factionated. And he was totally happy with using violence to prevent that from happening, which is what John Adams kind of started doing with the Alien and Sedition Act. Um, so it wasn't about political parties the way we have them now, where the whole country is divided into these camps that follow, a certain celebrity, where it's like, Washington D.C. is Hollywood for ugly people. That's a completely different system than what George Washington was talking about. He was talking about factions. The reason he didn't want factions is because he knew that factions were the things that
It's
allowed
inevitable, though.
no, factions. Well, it might be inevitable. What he was talking about was he was saying that the oligarchy needs to be united in order to prevent the monarchy. That's what he was talking about, and in order to prevent the democracy as well.
In
He
order
wanted
to prevent
the
the restoration of the monarchy, the institution of monarchy had to be abolished, and the church that supports monarchy, because in Europe, once upon a time, all kings were crowned by the Pope and had to
yeah, but
derive
this is
their
what
moral authority from the Pope.
this is. Yeah, and that's the right way to do it. You know, this is where this is what I was talking about when I say natural kingship. Is monarchy is as natural, it's as naturally occurring as oligarchy and democracy, and more so actually. Um, Oligarchy and democracy basically occur because of sin, but monarchy existed before sin because there was one man in the beginning. His name was Adam, and he was king over the world.
Well,
Um,
actually, according to the book of Samuel, um, I mean, Adam
According to
and
the
Eve
book of
had been
Samuel,
expelled from. Adam and Eve had already been expelled from Eden, so there was, at least the idea of original sin that so people already knew they were sinful and needed leaders and needed to be led out of Egypt to conquer Canaan, etc. So there were already ideas of leadership with Moses, whom is the leader of Jews. So, but anyway, I mean, the idea was that Moses knew the way, right? He led
the
the
yeah,
Jews out of
he was
Canaan and conquered it.
the last thing. See, this is where I heard the beginning, which was Samuel, and I heard the end of what you said, which was Moses. And I'd love to explain that because that's one of the most misinterpreted things in the whole Old Testament. One of the most retarded apologies for the American system I've ever heard. Because if you
Well,
actually
you
look
do
what's
have a
going
place
on,
called New Canaan in Connecticut.
oh
I don't
yeah,
know if you know this, but Ann Coulter grew up in New Canaan, Connecticut.
oh yeah, everywhere I go in America, there's Damascus, there's New Canaan, there's Bethlehem, there's all these. Yeah, that's what America named their towns after.
Well, yes,
It's
so
really messed up.
Americans thought of themselves as kind of chosen in their own way,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah, that's what Manifest Destiny is all about. Yeah, they associated themselves with the Book of Judges, and that's why they violently, you know, uh, eliminated the savages, unlike the Spanish who converted them. So and intermarried with them, which is why there's a Mexican race, and then why it's not quite white. You know what I mean? But okay, but let me explain this Book of Judges thing, Book of Samuel thing, because I'd love to explain that. People get
please
caught
do.
up on. In fact, what? What is it?
Please do, I said. I think we're kind of
Oh, okay.
talking over each other because there's some delay or something.
Yeah, this was one of the most important things to me when I was kind of like figuring this stuff out. Because I wasn't always a monarchist or a Catholic or a traditionalist or a feudalist or anything else. But people get so caught up with the words. It's kind of like Israel. They read Israel and they think it means what we mean when we say Israel today. They read Judges and they think it's the same thing as the Supreme Court of the United States. They read King and they think it's the same thing as the King of England. It's totally different. Samuel was a judge, and the thing that the people were upset about that caused them to go to Samuel and say, "We want a king," was not was not the institution of monarchy. They were upset about Samuel's sons because they looked at Samuel's sons and they said, these are the people who are going to lead us next. So, what do you call a man who's in charge of the whole country, who judges the whole country, and who passes that authority on to his sons when he dies? Well, we call that a king. So, Samuel was a king. But what what he was talking about and what the people were talking about was a king in the way of the nations surrounding them, like the other nations. And what Samuel specifically talked about was taxes and a standing army, which is, by the way, same thing you see in the United States with the institution of Constitution, which was a that was a coup d'état essentially against the Articles of Confederation, but it was about taxation and a standing army. It was about taking a tithe from the people of their sons and their money, and um, and that's why also David is punished when people don't understand. There's an interesting thing about David towards the end of his life where God punishes him for taking a census of the people. So it has a lot to do with the operations of government, not there being one single leader and one single king. It actually has to do more with bureaucracy and the exploitation of the people under the way the pagans have their kings. That's what it's about. And the other thing I wanted to say about natural monarchy is you see kings cropping up everywhere if you understand them for what they are, which is a single leader that has ultimate authority and ultimate power within his jurisdiction and passes it on to his sons. And personally, in America, I believe through experience and through study that business and the private sector of business is basically where you have monarchy. And it's also where you have true governance, because the political field in America at this point is just entertainment. They don't do that much. I mean, they cause trouble when they're ready to, but as far as people's day to day and what they actually do on a regular basis, they follow their employers. That's who they follow.
Okay, but are you really suggesting that Americans would like a monarch?
I think a lot of Americans would, yeah. I think American is a little bit.
Well, then they would be un-American.
Yeah, and that'd be fine. That'd be fine. I mean, one of the
Well,
best
then
things for an Aztec in the 1500s would be to be un-Aztec. So if you're the member of a barbarian nation, it might be good to oppose your barbaric culture.
No, if we are barbaric, we would seek to be civilized. We wouldn't want to remain
Yeah,
as barbarians. So
exactly. And we are.
we
We're
need
America.
ideals to strive towards, and you say you want to go back on 250 years of American history and go back to being governed by an absolute monarch. Well, I guess you
Not
can
really. No, because the English king
I
was
mean, I
the
don't know
English
why
king
you
was not a
defend.
very good king. That's the problem.
Well,
See,
that's
England.
a problem.
The reason
That's why
why God.
eventually it
Okay,
ended. The institution of absolute monarchy has ended in Europe, and
no,
you
it has
seem to
not.
be saying you want to restore it. So that's a bit odd, but let's hear your reasons. And
The
you're
Pope
saying
is
you think your fellow Americans would like a king. I happen to know that there was this No Kings demonstration organized by Democrats against Trump. I suppose with his many sons, a lot of Democrats thought with horror that he might one day become monarch of America. I mean, of course, that's exaggerated, but there it is. There is this fear that the American Republic will become, some kind of a banana republic. But there have been jokes made about it already, about America really being now a banana republic. But I
America
mean,
will.
okay, let's park the whole thing. I'm happy
Okay,
to
yeah. Ask me a
consider
question.
that
Let me know when.
once upon a time, people did need a king because the idea was kings were the people. Sorry, kings were men who led their armies into battle. So it meant that he would be the bravest and the best at fighting and the most and obviously you would need someone to lead you into battle, or nobody would fight a battle, and everybody would run as soon as the enemy arrived. So I can see how organically the institution of monarchy came about, and then things changed. They got so big that they wouldn't want to
Do you
risk
think
any
there was
king.
no king in peacetime? You think kingship is about war
Yes, of
exclusively?
course, of
No,
course.
no, that's not true
Well,
at all.
how would you know?
But my study of history, my study of history, my study of the Bible, which is 9/10 history, and my study of history at large.
Well,
You
the
know,
point is, if you became leader, um, there would be no idea of human rights, the human rights of your people. If you were king, then of course you
people, there
would.
are no human rights. I mean, if somebody is a problem, they lose their rights immediately. I mean,
Well,
there's
exactly, and,
just
and and I guess the founding
there's no
fathers didn't
respect for
want
rights,
that
and
that,
rights was
that to
always a
happen to
retarded thing
them.
anyways from the beginning when the Freemasons in France came up with it.
Uh, Can we
They
just
came up
stick
with
to
it
the point
while
that the
killing and,
founding
and taking
fathers
away
did
people's
not
rights
want?
left and right.
You keep
Good.
talking over me. I mean, it would help you if you
No, you
understood what
talk
I'm
over
saying.
me. I haven't been able to answer one thing you said in the last few minutes.
What did you
There's been
want
many
to
things I've
answer?
wanted to say. Huh?
Could we just stick to the subject of leadership? Because somehow we're arguing about monarchy, but uh, I'm saying that monarchy would be natural when people had to fight wars, and they had to choose a strong man to help them fight against invaders, etc. And he would be the man who would lead his men into battle, and that would be regarded as crucial to the survival of your group. But such a man would not care much for the human rights of his people, and therefore the idea of a republic came about in Athens and Rome and America, once the Europeans settled in sufficient numbers.
Yeah,
So,
the problem with that is that these republics that you just listed were more abusive to their people than monarchs ever were.
well,
That's the
this is a
problem.
subjective view that cannot be conclusively established. So perhaps we can just agree on, how things have been, without arguing
It's
about.
also I'd also disagree with your narrative. It's not like there was only kingship and then people wanted protection from their king, so then the institution of a republic came about. That's not true at all. I mean,
How
republics
do
have
you
always
know?
come about my study of history.
Well,
There,
you need to explain how, in one sentence. Because,
how republics
okay,
have come
we're
about.
here to talk about leadership. So,
Republics generally came about in cities where there was not, a clear founder of the city, where you had a group, an oligarchy that needed to, like look at Rome, for instance.
okay,
Um,
a city
that's where
state.
republic is. It's basically it's about governing a city where you just have a group of men that share authority. That's where republics came about.
Okay, so it would be, well, the most powerful men, the most intelligent men, the bravest men, men with natural
No,
charisma,
typically the ones who
natural
started. I
authority.
mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
typically the founders. No, it's typically the founders. It has more to do with precedent than it does with virtue or merit.
Yes,
It's the people who founded it.
fine. But if you want to discuss your preferred subject of masculinity and how it is acknowledged and displayed, apart from being a man, with broad shoulders and bulging biceps, then perhaps we could discuss that. I'm saying no man
Well,
is.
all these things are connected. That's what I'd love to get across to you is that monarchy is leadership. Leadership is masculinity. You know,
Yes, yes, but not all
and
men
so
are
that's
leaders.
why you have these natural leaders that come about. And I say in business in America is where you see it for the most part. Um, you have these natural leaders come about and they act as kings in their particular domain. It's just people don't like using the word because they associate it with these foolish things that are just bad examples of what a king really is. So and that's what I was trying to say about leadership. Now, what you're talking about with war, yeah, you have masculinity and you have leadership in war, but because war is this particular situation where it's more emergent, it's more immediate, it's not as long term. It's actually less about kingship, and I'd say the leaders in war uh, are more closely related to the concept of empire. of emperors, which is where you get the word emperor, imperator.
Yes,
In the
yes,
Roman
the one
world.
who gives orders.
Also
But
dictator.
back to the subject of leadership. Let us assume that, there is a leader. I think what we're maybe arguing about is how we choose our leader. Is that not the case? I mean, I'm trying to make it easy for you, really. So
Yeah,
I'm saying, that all
no,
these
I'm just
men and
impatient
these men.
today because you really have a lot of things that you just don't understand. It's hard to overcome the. I've been dealing with the
Well, I
older
mean, we might even
generation. The
agree
No Kings
if you
rally
would
is a
just
good
sort of let
example.
me,
That's nothing but hippie boomers.
yeah,
Go
because
ahead.
you're keeping you're talking the whole time, and I'm trying to make things, easy for you, and say with leaders, it would be, well, not all men are leaders. Men do have to choose an alpha male leader, don't they? And then the next question would be, how would they recognize that the person wanting to be leader is the best for them, who won't turn around, tell lies, abuse them, not keep promises? And then I suppose the answer would be the manner by which they choose their leader. A monarch would be very exclusive. The subjects are not, consulted about who becomes king. It would be an oligarchy, as you say. It's only the top people who choose people amongst themselves, without regard for the preferences of the people below.
I
And
mean, they
this,
certainly
I
regard
imagine,
the
was what the
preferences of
founding
the people
fathers
below
sought
them.
to overcome.
It is difficult not to talk over you if you're talking when it's my turn to talk, So do you want me to answer?
Yes, I
They
do. When
definitely,
I'm silent, you can speak, and it would be great if you didn't, spend the time complaining about me talking over you. I'm trying to make things clearer. I mean, I know you would like it to be a monologue, but if it's just a monologue, people won't listen.
oh, that's why. You're pissed off that E. Michael Jones talked over you and made you look stupid. That's why you're acting this way.
No, actually,
I
that was
understand.
one of the best streams I've had with him. But
Yeah, that was great.
you have decided in your petulance to refer to some other people other than the subject at hand. So I'm trying to help you, discuss masculinity, and I'm saying, how would you choose a man to lead you? What qualities would you look for?
You know that somebody is in the running for leadership because they tell you what to do. The reason men want leaders is because they want somebody to tell them what to do. They decide to do what they're told by leaders, basically, for the most part, based on their experience with that particular person. So they observe that person over time, and that's how they know their virtues, especially the most important virtues for the task, such as integrity and simplicity and doing the things that they said they're going to do.
Okay, so
So
they
it's
have to
all.
be honest. They have to keep promises. They have to
No, they
be.
don't have to be. I mean, usually you don't have an option as far as the amount of people. One of the problems we have in America is people don't tell you what to do, and the ones who do are out of touch, so you can't get a hold of them. But no, usually of all the people that are telling you what to do, they're all liars, they're all cheaters, they're all thieves. And the
Okay,
problem
so
is that
now
you
you
have so
propose
much of an
to.
experience with that even when an honest person does tell you what to do, it takes quite a long time to overcome your expectation that he's lying and
I
manipulating.
understand. So now you're complaining about the political process that all the leaders you have
No,
are.
I'm not. I'm complaining about business and everyday living. This has very little to do with politics. I'm not talking about politics at all.
Okay, so you're talking about business leadership, etc. And but I was hoping to discuss, the qualities of masculinity in theory, anyway. And I'm agreeing with you that there seems to be very little masculinity that being displayed, and therefore we need to ask ourselves, what is masculinity? And you're going to say, or have you already said, charisma, strength, courage, etc.?
Um, well, I mean, one of the reasons there's a lack of masculinity being displayed, as you said, is because of what I've been saying, that you don't find leadership in politics anymore because politics is entertainment. And even in the like the financial world, the feminine traits are promoted because the economy has been so inflated by usury over time that the only things that are rewarded are feminine activities. for making money. Whereas a man digs a hole in his backyard, he's not considered like a laborer for doing that. Yeah, he's considered a hobbyist. But if he sits on his computer all day, talking to people, well, then he's working. And so that's the problem, and that's why if you really want to find masculinity, you don't find it in politics. Politics is just entertainment. It's just going on a camera, looking good, and manipulating people. Really, it's acting.
Yeah, but you need a different kind of political process if you don't like what you currently have, which is democracy. So,
Sure.
so in order to choose a leader, I mean, if you don't like the current system, you need a leader to say, I know the way out of this. I will make all these changes that you want, and it will be better for for the American people, something like that.
Well,
And then the people will have to decide whether to believe him and follow him and support him, because without supporters or followers, no one can be leader. And so he has to first persuade you that he knows the way and that he is worth supporting.
Yeah, I mean, I think the field is wide open. I mean, like I said, with the fact that there's not many people who are actually willing to tell other people what to do and lead them, you can go and take authority pretty easily in this country and take power and take leadership. And
well, it wasn't easy for Trump.
That's done outside of the political field. That's done outside of the big elections and all this kind of stuff. All that's just a distraction. Really, what men need to do if they want to have a new system is take advantage of the open field you have in business that actually allows you to gain people to you. Men need to start their own businesses and then not follow, because most of the business world right now is taken up by these corporations, and that is this effeminate elective system where a weird oligarchy appoints people that have no merit to tell.
Well, yes, because we now live in a matriarchy. Do you think?
Well, I've addressed this before. I don't think women are at the top of the hierarchy. I actually think that's almost an impossibility.
Well, I would tend to agree with you, but
above the women
is a society where most parents are not married parents. That is how I define it. Maybe you have another way of defining it, but I think in order to get to the society that you want, most Americans would have to be married parents, properly parenting their legitimate offspring. And in order to do this, the law needs to change, because currently no Western government even supports the idea of marriage, do they? They support gay marriage, yes.
Well, the law doesn't affect people that much in marriage. It affects people in divorce, and it affects people in fornication and all these things that are corruptions of marriage. But if people actually want to be married, I mean, if they're subject to a church, the church law affects it quite a bit. But the political law,
but the church is separated from
most
the
people are
in
considering
America.
common law marriages right now. That's what people do.
The church is separated from the state in America. So I guess you will have to find another way. And again, it's always, you have to change the law in order to change human behavior.
What I'm trying to tell you is that the state is functionally inconsequential for the vast majority of things people.
How can you say that when so many people complain about the government and look to the government to solve their problems, be it immigration or crime or whatever?
The way I just said,
of course you need a government.
People also in America complain about the actions of celebrities, about the actions of English.
Yes, I know that there's a whole bunch of stuff.
English royal family. What I'm trying to tell you is that the reason why. So when people complain about it, that doesn't prove that it's consequential. One of the reasons that people do is because they don't have other things in their life that would actually inspire them. As soon as they do, they usually don't pay attention to politics.
No, but if there's a problem, then they need to solve it, don't they? I mean, you're saying, if there's a problem, isn't there a political process that needs to be undergone to solve the problem?
No, the political process will come in its own time. No, you have you have a
No,
social
so
process.
what are you saying? So if somebody is saying,
I'd love to say
Nathaniel,
what I'm saying.
let us,
Right?
what can you do to lead us out of this terrible state? Um, what are you going to
I can
say?
I can employ you.
No, no, but nobody wants to. They want you to change the laws, right? I mean, if you want to be top dog in America, and I guess that's supposed to be president, you need to make some promises and show you're capable of keeping them, and then you get elected. I mean, you're going to say the process is corrupt, but let's say it's not corrupt. Then you would have to lay out your manifesto and say, here are my promises, these are my policies, and I will lead you to better government. And in some way, your words, your behavior will have to convince the people to do it. And why don't we stick to that subject rather than, you know, how things should be in theory, monarchy, republic?
Oh, I'm talking about very practical things. This isn't theory. I'm doing this right now. And the thing is, I can write law all day long. People
Yeah,
are
but
dictated
there's
by
no point in
a
you writing
law
law all
more
day
quickly than they
because
are. There's a
not
certain type of
you're not
law that
the
affects people's
legislature.
regular daily life much more than the laws of the land as far as what's passed by Congress. And that law is called company policy. And so it comes back to the same thing. If you want me, if you want me to change the law, well, it's easier in business. It's easier in business. And then the law, when you get to the bills in Congress, well, the only way to approach that is to build slowly from the ground up. Then you do that
Okay,
basically with
so
everything.
I think you're confusing what you can do personally and what the ideal leader of America should be. I think that there's some, maybe some conflation there, but I'm saying, if you want to display, alpha male characteristics, then you need to be able to persuade people that you have this character of masculinity, which you said you were wanted to talk about, and maybe you'd like to tell us what these are, apart from
Characteristics.
charisma and eloquence and the ability to persuade people.
Masculinity comes out in, I'd say, probably three different traits. Um, it's productive creativity. This is all in Adam. So Adam manages the garden and produces things. It's
What Adam,
provision in
as in
that
Adam and Eve.
I'd love to finish. It's provision in that he provides for his wife, so he provides for women and children, and he takes care of them. So the production you basically do with other men, and the provision you do with women and children. And then the third thing
Did you
is
say Adam?
durability.
Though?
It's
Did you
that
mean
he
Adam and
can
Eve?
withstand more punishment than women and children. Durability is the last one. Yeah, Adam, from Adam and Eve. He's the original king that God gave us, and a
But he
grace
wasn't
example.
king of anything. He was just the first man. There was no one around.
He had the entire human race. He lived for a long time,
Yeah, but that was after
6,000
he
years,
was expelled from Eden.
and he led the human race as king
Well, he didn't lead. He
for a
just,
thousand years.
sired them. I don't think he was displaying any masculine characteristics since he was so easily persuaded by Eve to eat the apple from the
No,
tree of knowledge.
he did display
But let's
he's
not
a saint.
argue about biblical stories because most people will scorn them. I'm just talking
Okay.
about the characteristics of. Okay, I'll just say what I think it is,
Well, we
and
could
then
talk about Jesus
you have
Christ. I
to
mean, he's the
talk.
most influential man that's ever lived, and he's a historical figure. So we could talk about Jesus Christ,
Well, I mean, nobody
the
wants
new
to lead
Adam.
him into being crucified, and obviously not everybody agrees with you, and there's a question of whether Christians really do
He
believe
did
in
a
the
lot more
Trinity,
things besides
etc.
being crucified. You're right. I mean, being crucified is the most important thing he did, but he did many other things besides that.
Well,
And crucifixion wouldn't have been necessary if it wasn't for sin.
but on the question of masculinity, which is a subject that you want to discuss, How
Mhm.
do you think this trait can be displayed?
Well, look at Jesus Christ. So you have a political situation where you have multiple kings under a distant empire. Everyone's upset. The poor are abused. The church leadership is totally corrupt and proud and effeminate. And the whole country is just broken up. And then you have not only that, but it's also the country itself is barbaric. It's not the center of the world. It's not especially influential. It's not especially significant. But it's just this
But
ancillary
Jesus was
little
living
problem.
was under the
So,
Romans,
so wait,
who had
it's hard for
taken
me to keep.
over Judea.
Say it
Look,
again. What?
well, it's just your narratives that completely um, discombobulate me. So Jesus was not in any way the king of the Jews. This was something that he was mocked about.
Okay. So,
What's so funny?
well, this is why you don't know. I mean, the king of the Jews was Herod, who was a foreigner. And
Exactly.
then he knew for a fact that Jesus Christ was going to replace him. And the church leadership at the time knew that Herod was a sign that their ultimate king was coming because he was an Edomite. So everyone involved in this narrative I just gave you understands that Jesus Christ was King of the Jews. He was destined to be King of the Jews. And then what I'm telling you is,
Okay,
if you
this
look at
is
the
in
way he
dispute.
acted, you can
This
see
is in
exactly what a
dispute,
king
and
is.
also
So here he
when
is
Jesus was
as
crucified, the
a
Romans were in
barefoot,
charge. The Romans were
poor
in charge.
man without property from a backwoods part of the province that's not especially respected. He's got nothing. He's not respected in his own hometown. And through sheer masculinity, granted, he's a son of David, but there were other sons of David. Joseph was one of them. So he does have
I
that
really
authority
don't
as
see,
well.
knowing
But through
the
sheer
history of
masculinity, he
Muhammad
walks
and
around the
Jesus, that
whole
anyone would
province,
choose
the whole
Jesus to lead
nation
them.
for 3 years, acting like a man, and gathers all of the people under his wing and has
What his
become such a
apostles,
threat that
all
the Jews are
13
able
of
to
them.
denounce him even to Caesar. I don't know how much of that came through with you talking over me. It's really hypocritical and bitchy for you to say, I'm talking over you. And then every single
Yeah,
time I start
because
talking,
you're talking
you
about
start talking over me.
irrelevance.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I can't
because
finish
it's
the thought.
irrelevant what you're saying. You're
All
talking
right,
about
whatever.
biblical
Are you
narrative
kidding
that
me? This
nobody
is
accepts.
totally
King
irrelevant.
Herod
You're
was
talking
not
to
in
Americans.
charge.
Miss
King
Caw, Miss
Herod
Caw,
was
you're
not in
talking to
charge.
Westerners. You're speaking in English. Who do you think is the most relevant man in English history, in American history? It's Jesus Christ. The
Well,
majority of all Englishmen, the majority of all Americans have been loyal to
I'm not
Jesus
saying
Christ.
that Christianity did not form the basis of Western civilization, but we are talking about leadership. Now, there's more than one
There's no better example.
right? You're saying that Jesus was the basis of Western civilization, but the point is, most Westerners do not believe in God. They're basically atheists. So we are talking about, government and who's going to lead government and the widespread atheism and cynicism of most Westerners. So by talking about Jesus, you're in a way showing naivete.
Even today, when you watch the political theater that is the American Congress and they talk, even the liberals and the leftists feel the need to point to their belief in God. What you're saying, it's not true by experience. It's false. I mean,
The
it's
story's
just
not
not
yet
true.
over, is it? I
What?
mean, are you really saying that America is going to become a monarchy with a pope defending his divine right to rule? Is this the is
No, that's
this
not what I said at all.
what
I
you
said America already
dangle before
has
your
within
fellow
it
Americans?
many kings and the potential for monarchy. And in the future, it will probably balkanize and form under many, different monarchs. And there will probably be a few republics in there. That's my prediction. which is a common enough prediction. People say, well, the country's going to collapse and there'll be roaming warlords and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean that's very common. This is not crazy prediction. I'm just using words that
Is this
you
what
are
you'd like?
fixated on. What?
Is this what you'd like? The balkanization and warlords in America?
No, what I'm
America
saying is
returning to the
that
Wild West?
the Wild West was not that. What I'm saying is that right now, if you are able to ignore political theater or at least not be emotionally affected by it too much, and you're able to understand the way the world really works, we can do what warlords would be wanting to do by operating in the private sector and the business realm. We can institute moral reform, we can institute legal reform, we can change the country, we can restore it, we can please God and lessen the wrath that's coming by acting under masculinity, essentially,
But it seems
in
you want the country to
business.
collapse. You seem to want the country to collapse. So I guess
I think God
nobody.
wants the country to collapse. No, I'm talking about what to do. I don't know if it'll prevent collapse, but what to do to lessen the sufferings under the country collapsing. Because
And
also
what
when the
do you want
country
to do?
collapse and people go to form under warlords and leaders and stuff like that, they're going to look to the people who are already in the habit of leading them.
So you're telling your fellow Americans everybody start a business, but not everybody is capable of doing that, and they probably won't do that.
No,
You only
I'm not
start a
telling them.
business
I
if you
think
think
more people should
business
definitely
is
start a
booming.
business, but I think more people should definitely start a business. But I think that
Well, they haven't got the capital. They're feeding poor. So tell them to do the very thing they can't do is, maybe not showing the best understanding of their circumstances. People
what in the
only
hell
want
did
to
you just
start.
say? Say that
Hmm?
again. Why can't
I
they start
said,
a business?
when people are feeling poor, telling people to start a business is not going to, instill confidence in you. But particularly
Because
when
they're
they're
feeling
so
poor.
poor
Well,
they
so
have
that's
no
the problem.
savings.
People think it costs money to start a business, and it doesn't. That's the problem.
It didn't
So I
cost you
think
any
people
money
should
to start
learn
your
about
business.
business a lot more, and that's kind of why I talk about it a lot.
Are
But I
you a
think
successful
it's
businessman?
probably about a third of men that should own and actually operate a business as like a leader of it, and then the other 2/3 should support those who are doing that. And that's probably the biggest problem. Is it's kind of like Michael Jones was saying about gold. It's like, don't invest in gold, invest in labor. Business is nothing but labor. That's all it is. It's the application of labor to create wealth. That's what it is. It doesn't cost any money.
Yes, and to
Sorry.
get to the society where you want the cost of labor to be affordable. You want there to be management of labor, and this means the production of future members of the labor force, which means encouraging Americans to be married parents, producing enough of the next generation of Americans to join the labor force, etc.
The way
And this
the
means
way to encourage
restoring the
people to be
patriarchy,
married is to
or do
pay
you
them
disagree?
a fair wage. The way to encourage
Well,
people to
yes,
be
but
married
if
and have children is to pay them a fair wage.
sorry, are you saying are you in favor of the minimum wage or not as a businessman?
I mean, I don't think it should matter. There's no minimum wage that's high enough to solve this problem. Um, I think that your fixation on marriage and children is putting the cart before the horse, because you have single men that would like to get married and have children because they always do, but they can't because of the economic situation. So you got to fix the economic situation. You do that
Yes,
by paying a
yes,
fair
that's
wage.
what I also
A
propose
fair
to
wage
do.
would be probably between $30 to $70 an hour. That's a
Okay,
fair
so
wage. There's no minimum
what
wage
is
in
it
such a thing.
currently?
Although I don't think that an hourly wage is fair as a rule. I don't think hourly is the right way to measure it.
What is the minimum wage currently?
Federally, I think it's $7 an hour. And what's considered a high minimum wage is like 15 an hour.
Right. Okay. Okay, so what we're trying to do is basically say men need a way of proving themselves, and maybe having a family would give them some idea of leadership skills, because I suppose you would
They're not
say
going to have a
that a
family
man would
until they
be
can
head of a
survive.
family. So every beta male will at least have a family to lead. That is the ideal situation, wouldn't you say, Nathaniel?
Oh, sure, I can agree with that.
Oh, great.
Does that
So
keep our
you,
friendship?
you, you need to
I like the Muslims.
what?
I like the Muslims. I think you're a bad example of a Muslim, but I like the
I
Muslims.
don't claim to be Muslim.
I know.
I'm just here to, help elucidate your views. I know you don't think it helpful that I keep interrupting you, but you do wander off the subject, and I wish to return to it again about
Well, I
how.
know I wonder. Yeah, you're not particularly good at knowing when I'm wondering when I'm on it.
Yes, I do
That's
that, which is why I interrupt,
okay.
and that's why I also have to interrupt my other guests, because if I allow them to monologue from beginning to end, which is probably what you'd like me to allow you to do, then
No,
nobody would know what it is you're really talking about. So I have to
in the beginning, I
bring us
asked you to
back to
help
the
me out and get
subject
me
of
started.
how masculinity can be displayed. And yes, it is irritating when I'm trying to make a point and you mumble something. So
Don't
as
accuse me of
regards
mumbling.
masculinity,
I'm not
how
good
do
about
you
that.
think it can be um, displayed in a way that is attractive to women?
You probably shouldn't try to be attractive to women because they have terrible judgment by and large of what a good. There are some women that have good judgment, but it's pretty rare. You want to try
Mhm.
to be attractive to men. That's the way to go.
Yes,
You need
yes,
to
I
totally
would
be.
agree with that. But I'm saying the law should regulate gender relations, and the idea of taking marriage more seriously is always regarded with horror, because I guess people are so used to the idea of a culture of casual sex, and that of course undermines marriage and undermines male leadership, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, well, company policy should definitely take into account gender. That's one of the biggest problems with it. And without offending the overarching law of the land, you really do want to regulate gender relations inside your business and try to discourage fornication and men and women being alone. That kind of thing. A good example actually is Les Miserables. The way the hero in that book runs his business is pretty decent. Uh, it's a good example
Sorry,
of it.
what was
I
it?
think I think Victor
Did you
Hugo
say?
was really. I mean, that's on the banned
Um,
book. There's some problems with it, but I think Victor Hugo was really trying to show how a man could be a saint in the modern era. Because the modern saints have not given us a great
could I
example of
stop you
that
there,
and haven't
because not
really panned
everybody
it.
knows the plot of Les Miserables, which is a story about the French Revolution? Yes.
It kind of starts at the French Revolution. It starts with Napoleon, but that's just kind of the backdrop, and it goes from there up to, because after the French Revolution, there's all these nascent revolutions that happen and fail and those kind of things. So it's kind of a backdrop of this continually revolutionary uh, country. But the saint, in the hero in that book, is he's a fugitive because he was arrested and jailed for stealing bread. He was providing for his sister and her children, and he was so poor. In fact, there's a wonderful part of that book where Victor Hugo is kind of examining his interior life, and he's talking about his experiences working the galleys and how it changed his soul, and how he became a sinner and impious. And he's examining what he did wrong, and he said, "Well, it was probably wrong to steal the bread because if I had asked, I probably would have gotten it. So this is a crime for sure." So he admits it. But then he looks at society and he says, "Wait a second. I'm a hardworking, good man that is providing for a family. I should never have been in a position where I was even tempted to steal bread
Hmm.
and literally to provide for children."
Hmm.
And so it's a fascinating thing. So anyway, so he comes out of it's a very I mean it's an epic. It's a long, long story, but he comes out of uh, prison as a convict, and then he's rejected by his fellow man. That's one of the things Victor Hugo highlighted very well in there, is how the people were the ones responsible for what they were suffering as a society. Not the king ultimately, not even the priests ultimately, but the people. And that's something you see in America right now. Like, I honestly think the laity in the church is super blind to its own sins.
Yes,
But
the people. I've heard it said that people deserve the government they get, and the
yeah,
implication is that if you're immoral, expect an immoral ruling class. And
yeah,
if you
correct.
were a moral people, then you would stick to your principles, and if you don't have any, you would find principles to defend. And once you defend your principles, you become masculine.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for example, I mean, feminine women defend their principles too. They're not as effective at it, but
Well, I suppose the most that men wish women would do as regards principles is
I'll
to,
get
well, not sleep around.
I'll give you a
Yes?
pretty good example. I'll give you a pretty good example of this. I am pretty unpopular in my parish right now, basically because I'm angry and I want to have more children. Those are the two things. Now, in my parish, people are totally fine with divorce. They're very accepting of sex outside of marriage, bastards being born, um, and they're very happy with women leading the parish. They're very happy with the men as their primary example, getting around and eating and chatting. That's how they spend their time, not working on anything, but eating and chatting. That's how they build their fellowship. Um, but me, I'm unpopular because I get angry sometimes and I want to have more children. Those are the two things that really made me unpopular in my parish. Now, that's a great example of moral either confusion or hypocrisy, or just not, like you said, defending your morals. Because it's like, if you logically look at this as a man, why in the world would the dude who's having children in wedlock be the one that doesn't fit in and doesn't do well and is kind of persecuted and is not allowed, not like given any friendship and stuff like that? But the divorced people and the bastards and the fornicators
Mm.
and all
Because
this,
they are the
they're
majority. They are the majority. That is a terrible thing. And actually, you reminded me of a time when um, there were these friends of mine, and there was this guest who had 5 children by the time she was 40, and they really hated her, really
oh yeah.
hated her
Well, I'll tell you this
within
though, Miss
wedlock
Call.
too.
I'll tell you this, I don't think it's that simple. Because, yeah, I mean, it's true that you're kind of a mirror to other people, but I run in a lot of circles right now, um, especially among young people, where fornication's totally cool. Um, I mean, a lot of behavior that I disagree with is totally accepted. I'm not the majority. And yet
Mhm.
they respect me, they listen to me, they even follow me because they recognize virtue. And I think that, and I'm not just saying that, one of them said, "You're the most virtuous person I've seen," or something like that.
I would tend to agree, Nathaniel. We don't agree on everything, but I can see that you're sincere,
Well,
and
thank
and
you.
this really does shine through.
So practically, I appreciate that. I think sincerity is probably the one thing people need. Practically speaking, what I want to say is I think it does come down to the generations. I think that, and that's one of the reasons I like that book, Les Miserables, even though it's got a lot of problems that got it on the banned books list. We're kind of scrounging. All of our other books are much worse nowadays, but um, is this problem of generations that people are so used to, like baby boomers and Gen X and Gen Y, or the millennials and the Zoomers, and the silent generation and the greatest generation, all this stuff. It's actually not normal, but Les Miserables, the period with the French Revolution, I think revolution is actually what causes that, and basically these great movements of wealth, where you have generations that are just significantly more wealthy than other generations, and that's where you get this. And my conclusion after a long experience is this, that I think that the Zoomers are wiser than the Boomers. I think that basically for justice to be served, the boomers should, as quickly as they can, give all of their wealth to the Zoomers and look for leaders among them. That's what I think.
Well, that would be convenient. So this is,
I'm not a
you know,
Zoomer.
you're a millennial.
Correct. So I think they're better than me, naturally speaking.
Well,
They're
because
more
they've had a
sincere.
harder life, I suppose.
It's not just
They
that.
didn't.
It's biblical. God says that the sins of the fathers will go down to the third generation, and the millennials are essentially the third generation from what's called the greatest generation. The greatest generation is where it seems to have started. So even me, I see a certain cowardice and insincerity that I constantly have to battle against, and the people younger than me don't have that, and so they're more trustworthy, and they're more virtuous, and they're more wise. They're not confused, because duplicity breaks your mind and makes it pretty impossible to actually discern the truth, because you don't even know who you are. So I think that's everything, and I think that's the way to solve this, basically. And you don't have to give up your pride. Well, all you would have to do, as somebody like me, this is what I'm doing, but somebody older than me who has more money, is find a young person that wants to start a business. Oh, he can't keep a job. Yeah, well, because jobs are stupid. They suck. They promote the liberal order through the corporate system. Find a young person that wants to start a business or something like that, and invest in them. Buy them a sawmill for $5,000 and have them. And yeah, they're going to disappoint you and stuff like that. But so is everything. You know what I mean? They shouldn't be so hard on the young people. They're so quick to look for any excuse to call them lazy and stupid. All these fat, divorced, lazy, stupid people that don't know their left hand from the right hand just sit and retire and sit out in their mountain and think they're going to be fine. It's hypocritical. We live a much harder life than our fathers did. I know that for a fact.
Well, I suppose boomers did have the luxury of thinking that the world is going to get better, while Zoomers don't, and that's why they behave with more circumspection.
Yeah,
Well,
one of the most virtuous priests I ever met, I believe, is in heaven now, and I hope he prays for me, and I hope he gets canonized. He said to me that he was talking about another priest who's also a good virtuous man. But he said the problem with the boomers is they can't imagine the world existing after they leave, which is why most of them think the world is ending. Meanwhile, us having children or trying to provide a world for our children, he's thinking the vasectomy generation's doing its best to make sure that there is no world left. And I think God's
yes,
gonna solve these problems, but it's better if we do it first, because the punishment's
yes.
pretty
So
strong.
talking about leadership, I really think that if you're going to choose a leader, you're not going to choose, one of those men who have had a vasectomy. You would be choosing a family man who has managed not to be divorced by his wife and whose children
I don't
are,
even think that.
a credit to him. That would
I
be
think
a sign of, leadership, wouldn't it?
I think in this day and age, a single man without a family is a better leader. By and large, you got to make sure he's not a sodomite or a fornicator. He might do some sodomy, he might do some fornication, but he shouldn't think those things are good, and it shouldn't be a lifestyle.
Yes, but ideally, um, well, there was once upon a time the idea that no man should be a leader if he's not married with grown-up children.
Not in the West. The West has always had celibate men in leadership, always, as a rule.
Well,
And they were
apparently one of
hired
your
when family.
bachelor presidents was the worst president in the world. I forget his name now, but he's
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, if you're talking about Andrew Johnson, I mean, I don't know enough about Andrew Johnson. It's hard to get accurate information on him, but I suspect he's not as bad as people say from just kind of reading between the lines. Because they call Abraham Lincoln a great president, the greatest president. Well, he killed 250,000 Americans and he enforced an empire, and he's kind of a stooge as
well,
far as like
he's
how he got into power.
the father of America, isn't he? He fought
Abraham
the
Lincoln?
American War of Unification, didn't he?
I mean, Abraham Lincoln's a horrible war criminal. I mean, God save his soul somehow. He's just terrible. And Andrew Johnson's basically was his vice president, got into power, and then started undoing everything as much as he could what Abraham Lincoln did. So I suspect Andrew Johnson's not as bad as people say, because the South has been a horrible place because of Abraham Lincoln since Abraham Lincoln. The
How is
South
it
was
a
one of the best
horrible
places.
place?
Everybody works for factories. Everybody's overworked. There's divorce. There's everybody has a slave mentality where they do what they said, what they're told, and they really can't oppose the government.
So did you
You
live
can't.
in Mississippi and Georgia?
North Carolina, Tennessee, now Texas.
Hmm.
So not the deep South. No, I think actually the deep South's better, which makes sense. I mean, they weren't on the front lines, so they weren't as wrecked from what I could tell. But I was in Georgia too. Georgia definitely was affected by the curse. I mean, the Civil War was about the North enslaving the South, and the factories enslaving the blacks. It was like the first example of, talking about bringing in immigration labor because it's cheap. Yeah, the North needed employees, so they freed the slaves to work as wage slaves in the North without any kind of community or anything. So, I mean, it was not an improvement for blacks by and large.
Yes, because sometimes slavery is actually more secure than trying to keep a roof over your own head.
Well, it's slavery. You got to talk about like types of slavery. It was just another form of slavery where there was no obligation to provide for an old man or to actually treat people like family. And the type of labor could be exploitative, much more
Mhm.
exploitative, with scientific efficiency and electric light and that kind of thing, and the artificial workday.
Yeah, I mean, slavery isn't actually forbidden in either the Bible or the Quran. So, maybe the British and the Americans should not have gone out of their way to forbid it, because the consequence of that is you have a growing welfare state and more people signing on to,
I don't even
be the
know.
useless eaters complained about.
I think like a lot of things, like we were talking about with kingdom and some of these other words we use, Israel, for instance, in the Bible, it just means something different. So one of the things said about Jesus Christ is that he came in the form of a slave. Well, who was he a slave to? He wasn't a chattel slave like people talk about. He was a slave to Joseph and Mary. He was a slave to his parents. And so um, obviously, I think when the Bible uses the word slave, it means something different. And now it
Well,
incorporates
actually,
chattel slavery too.
um, I think that for people who believe in God, some of them argue about whether they're servants or whether they're slaves. But I think the logic of the system, with God telling us what to think and who we can have sex with, he does presume to own our minds and our bodies. So
Yeah,
we are the
he
slaves of
gives us
God
free
if we
will.
believe in that sort
He
of thing.
judges our minds and our bodies. Um, I mean, another thing I want to throw out there is I really don't approve of American slavery because, uh, and English slavery, because that was perpetrated against the Irish and destroyed Ireland in many ways. It seems to be the thing that basically broke the faith in Ireland is
But wasn't
slavery. I
slavery
mean, I
what
think
made
it didn't
America
quite do it.
great?
Go ahead.
Wasn't what what made America great, because a lot of the Europeans made the Atlantic crossing through indentured servitude. They had to promise their labor for, I think, 10 years, was it? Just to
Oh
get
yeah,
their fare,
I
and they
agree
had to
that the
wait to work
Irish.
10 years.
I agree that
Mm.
the Irish are what made America great. That's a fact for sure. Um, but um, I think it would have been better, if they had stayed in Ireland and not been so wrecked by by the uh, by the English. And that, you know, I mean,
Yeah,
so
things
for
happen.
that regard, I think it's good that they outlawed it. It was a horrible crime committed against my people.
Well, I mean, there was a silver lining, wasn't there? I guess, for the black slaves, they could still be in Africa if they were not enslaved after being captured, and then they would not be, you know, living
To be
life,
honest with you,
their lives as Americans.
I don't have a strong opinion on Black and African history. I grew up with Black people. Um, I just, I don't, I don't really have a strong opinion of it.
Hmm. Well, I
I'm
mean,
more concerned with my people.
yeah, but I mean, it's just a principle of the thing, I suppose. So I'm saying, obviously, with the a burgeoning welfare state, it has a deadening effect on the supply of labour, the welfare state, because there is this thing called the welfare trap. So if you're on benefits, you would only be attracted into working if the wage offered is considerably more than what you're getting sitting at home. I mean, why would you get up
Yeah,
early and,
from
so,
from what I can tell, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. I mean, if you basically look into like the origins of abortion, um, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants hate the Blacks just as much as they hate the Irish, and I think over time, historically, that has come out in different forms. And basically, once they started thinking that there's too many people in the world, and they kind of had that, and then the Marxist idea of like machines are going to serve us and eliminate the need for labor, then they start killing their workforce through abortion. Uh, I mean, it makes me sympathetic to Black people, and I think welfare state's part of that, because it seems like the welfare state, from what I hear, is basically designed to keep Black people from having families that aren't broken, which I'm very sympathetic to. I mean,
well,
everyone
it
needs married
happens to
parents.
white people too in England because, so
Oh
many
yeah,
of them,
sure.
you know,
Well, it happens to white
um,
people here. I mean, I'm from Appalachia. I mean, that's a common theme in history, is you have the poor white man and the poor Black man, and they're kind of pitted against each other in the interests of uh, at first the English, and then you know
well, the ruling classes also
Protestants.
have their divisions, and
Really.
when it gets really bad, you have civil war. I mean, that
Oh yeah.
that um
Well,
has
they
been known to
impress
happen.
their division. They impress their division on the lower classes. The lower classes
Which
don't
is why
have
you
division.
need rules to regulate the behavior of everyone. That's the whole idea, and this is
You need
basically
a
what.
king. You need a
No,
king to regulate
no,
the behavior of
you
everyone.
need a
They don't
king.
follow rules. The ruling
Well,
class
if
won't
you, of
follow
course, they're not
rules.
going to follow rules if you don't enforce them.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
what I'm saying.
I
The king
know.
is the enforcer. The king enforces
Well,
them.
but that would
Nobody
be
enforces.
at the expense of your First Amendment rights, which I think
Yeah, I
is
mean the
a,
First Amendment doesn't do anything for anybody except Satanists and blasphemers. That's what
well.
the
I
First
think
Amendment
it's
is.
because you don't you people don't even notice when they've been infringed against. That there's
Yeah,
so many
because
things that, like
it's
DEI,
not
that
real. I mean,
that's
it's a joke.
against the First Amendment. Affirmative action, that's against the First Amendment. But nobody complained until it then you got your cancel culture, and you can't say anything without somebody getting offended and trying to
I mean, everyone should
cancel
have
your
known.
job.
Everyone should have known that the First Amendment was a joke when Corona hit and the churches shut down. Everyone should have
It's
known.
only a
And they should
joke
have
if you
known
don't
that the
enforce
Second
it.
Amendment is a red herring at that point. Because it's like, what is the point of having guns if the government just shuts down our churches like it's nothing?
Well, it's
It's a
because
joke.
nobody cared enough, right? I mean,
A
the
lot of
whole
people
point.
care.
Well, that they
A lot of
only
people care.
complained at home and posted online. But I'm saying the
It
reason why
changed a whole
lockdown,
generation. It changed us.
yes, yes, but the point is, you can appeal to people by saying, we care about you so much, we shut down the whole economy just for you, to protect your life, and you have to come out on, well, I think it was Wednesdays, to clap for the NHS in England. But it's only because most people were atheists. That's why they wanted to clap for the NHS, because they thought nurses and other people in the essential services were protectors of life. While if they were mostly believing people who believed in God and the afterlife, they would have rejected the very idea of lockdown.
I
And they would have
think
said, well, we've all had our innings, and maybe some people will die, but
I
we
think
don't
your
need to close down
location
the whole economy.
I think your location really colors you on this. Like in America, everybody was up in arms about it. Everybody resisted as best they could, and people became much more organized because of that. I never wore a face mask, never once. And I was in that fight, and I learned the law, and I learned what to do and how to handle it. And I lost a job kind of amicably, and I fought a battle, and a lot of other people did. I think I fought harder than a lot of people, but I didn't make as many mistakes as other people too, which spared me some trouble. But no, I mean America is just a more passionate place than England, from what I can tell. And one thing that's interesting is um, I'm involved with Franciscans, and there's a Franciscan preacher. The Franciscans have solved pretty much every problem that has ever occurred, and he says, and it's true, that in the time of Noah, the problem was that there was too much passion. So God brought a flood to cool the passions. Well, the problem today is the opposite. It's too cold. There's not enough passion. There's not enough charity. It's cold. And so, that's basically what you need to do on an individual virtuous level, I think, is actually incorporate your passions more and be more willing to suffer and be very, very charitable.
Well, I think it's something to do with the birth rate, because if you have a very high average age, the personality of the country would change. I mean, imagine if the average age of America were 80, then I guess the government will be able to do anything they liked to the American people whose average age is 80. But if they were all in their 20s, they wouldn't dare, because there would be some fight back against
the birth rate is downwind of all these things, because you can't get somebody to have a baby without it's just very difficult to get somebody to have a baby. So the birth rate's downwind, and statistics are not operable. They report what has already happened. So the solution, you're just in my opinion, you're just kind of looking at the symptom, not at the actual solution to that symptom. That makes sense.
What do you think is the problem?
A lack of masculinity, a lack of I think confusion and distraction prevents men from knowing what they actually can accomplish. And I'm out there paying them to do it. That's my plan.
Well, but that's because Americans do not have an official moral system,
Sure.
which is a moral system that supports the institution of marriage. And that's why, marriage was universally practiced, because that was the only way to produce and parent the next generation. It's a child protection scheme.
Yeah.
Because the ancients understood that if anybody should be looking after their children, it should be, the mother, the parents, not daycare, not nursery.
In order to, I think one of the problems is contract law. We kind of think everything should be written down. And the truth is, when you read something, and there's a lot lost in translation, the best way for people to have a moral system is to have an example. That's the best way. And that's why I'd like to talk about Jesus Christ and how he actually lived his life. And that's the way people used to think. They used to think that way.
Well, obviously, the written word should be reinforced by actions and, people around supporting whatever.
After action.
Huh?
Yeah. I said the written word comes after actions. The first thing you have is you have a man acting. That's the first thing. And then somebody writes about it.
Well, it doesn't have to be either or. It can all be, together. The action, the written word, the spoken word, all.
Oh, sure.
Focused on doing the same thing.
The neglected thing is obviously the action. Written word is neglected a little bit too. Spoken word is.
Well, leadership is a missing thing. So if you don't like something, you need to, find somebody who will say they will, lead you away from, the bad situation that you have now. And nobody
Yeah,
even
I'll do
thinks
that.
about
I
that.
mean, if
They just
anybody,
think, all I have to do is wish for this thing and I'll get it. Of course, you're not going to get it just by wishing for this thing or by voting.
I'll tell you that at this point in my life, I've basically given up my life to, fixing some of these problems. I think the one problem is usury, and I think fair wages is the solution to that problem. And so, yeah,
Well,
if there's
yes,
anybody that wants leadership, I will lead them personally. I will do it, and they can reach out to me.
right. But I mean, on the question of usury, I really think you need the law to ban it if you want to ban it. And if you're not serious about that, I guess you're not serious about banning usury.
It's always been banned by the king, and
No,
we
it
do have an absolute
wasn't.
monarch, the Pope. Hmm?
Well, it was allowed since the time of, well, I don't know when um, the Catholic Church allowed it,
The
but I know it
1420s
the
because
Vatican
of the Bank of
Bank.
Florence. Good.
Well, the Vatican Bank has operates some kind of usury.
Yes, it was
So
allowed
I
in the
mean,
14 it was allowed in the 1420s roughly, because of the Bank of Florence. And
mhm.
so oligarchs with the Pope, basically, yeah, caused us to be weak on that issue. And the solution was Franciscan mendicants, the poor,
Well,
celibate preachers given up to
but
charity
you
for
can't
years.
expect people to do this sort of thing now. I mean, the most obvious thing is to ban usury with Sharia, and of course, most
I think,
Americans being Islamophobes, they can't bear the idea.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's your problem. I mean, I might be open to that if you could act in such a way, or if another Muslim, preferably a Muslim man, could act in such a way that I felt like, this is good. You haven't been very good at persuading me of that, but I'm open. I've been open to it from the
Well,
beginning.
well, the thing is,
I
you don't
think that
have
the
to
most
like me
natural,
to
I
see
think the
the
easiest
principle
way
of the
to
thing.
ban
But for some
usury
reason, you feel
is
you have to like
just
me
so I can
to
give you
agree that Sharia
another
would, would,
option
would, would
besides Sharia is
another
business,
option.
and
What,
that's
what
that
what
was
might
the
that be?
Franciscan solution too. They formed
Well,
their
well,
own
you can't
bank.
do that in your country, can you?
I
Franciscan
can start a
priests, for
business.
heaven's sakes. I mean,
I can start.
why can't you be realistic?
I am being realistic. I've done it.
Well,
I'm
well,
already
you,
doing it.
you, you're saying, oh, Franciscan monks will ban usury in America. Of course, that's not going to happen.
That's not what I said. That's not
You're
what I
living
said. You were talking
centuries
over me. You didn't
away.
hear what I said. That's not what I said. Franciscan monks give a lot of examples. One of the things they did is they formed banks, and lay people were in charge of the banks, usually third order, and then they also formed businesses and they supported businesses. I think the solution is in
Well,
business.
that's not going to
America
happen now,
America
is
doesn't
it?
need, huh?
That's not going to happen
What?
now, is it?
Yeah, it's happening right now. It's
That
what I'm
these
doing.
Franciscan monks are going to set up banks all over America, the Franciscan banks of America.
The Catholic lay folk can do, because we're in America, so it's different from Italy. So we already know how to form banks, and we already know how to form businesses. All you have to,
You
the
can just
Franciscans
ban.
are what I was just talking about with morals being understood by example. That's why the Franciscans are important. They're
It
not
can
important as leaders. They're important as being the example for the morals. So I know
well,
a
it can be
Catholic man
reinforced
starting a bank.
only by the
I'm starting
law.
businesses, and that's how we'll combat usury. I mean, Sharia might be involved in that. I don't know.
You think
You'll have to do a
you're
better
going to
job.
single-handedly ban usury? Don't
Yes.
you have an exaggerated idea of your likelihood of success? Why do you think you alone are going to ever be in a position? You're not even saying the right thing, right? You could ban usury with Sharia, but
I'm banning usury right now just with Catholic law, and I'm not alone.
sorry, you're banning usury by what?
Um, you mean the process of doing it?
Yeah, how are you doing it?
So, if you kind of look at everything I've been saying, I'm employing the youth who know that there's a problem. I'm instituting a law and a moral through example and through spoken word and stuff like that, that we won't participate in usury. And then I'm providing them a fair wage that encourages them to get married and have children. So in my sphere, I'm banning usury. I understand scale. I think the big thing you don't understand is scale. You scale small and you go large.
No, you just say what would do the job in theory, even if you can't yourself do it. If the government would ban usury, then it would be banned.
The
Not,
government,
fiddle around and pretend that, your hiring practices is going to, change the country. Why don't you just say ban usury? How are you going to ban usury with
because
Sharia?
I think that's
What
how I'll
else
get
can
the
you
government.
do?
If that's the best thing, I think that's how I would get the government to listen to me. The government listens to
Well, yes, of
corporations
course you'd have to get the
and
government to listen to you.
yeah,
And
this
of
is the
course
way
you
to.
saying, oh, Nathaniel says this. It's like, well, who are you? Who are you to tell us anything? Then you would need to rely on a higher authority. You could say the Quran.
Well,
I say the Quran, and I
Yeah, no,
say Sharia.
I'll use the Bible. If I have to use the Quran, I'll use the Quran. But Benjamin Netanyahu said that America is very easy to move with money, and so I am in America playing the money
Why do you
game.
listen to Benjamin Netanyahu?
No, somebody else told me
Well,
that.
you're acknowledging his supremacy over you.
No, I'm ignoring. Well, he does have a certain. A lot
Well,
of
no, he
people
doesn't.
feel that.
He's just he just leads the American colony in Israel. I really don't know why
What I
Americans think, they're just pretending that Israel is some independent country with its own foreign policy. Of course it isn't. It's an American colony.
the Americans are concerned that America does what Israel wants. That's what they're concerned.
Oh, yes, you'd be known for, bombing the crap out of Muslim countries and shipping Muslims over as cheap labor to your country. And obviously not all Americans agree about that. I guess the business organizations of America would be happy about
I think you're
cheaper,
getting
more
really
willing
distracted.
labor.
What I'm trying to say is that the way America works, the things that actually change America are business, employment, and money. And so that's the
Yeah, so
field
you
I'm
need to have an
operating.
industrial and employment, policy, and nobody's even thinking about that except for getting cheaper labor, like, H-1B visas, which
Right.
I guess,
So I'm doing the opposite of what everyone else is doing, which is generally a good marketing principle. I am paying fair wages. I'm building industry with actual labor of one's hands, and I'm using kind of picking my people in such a way that is the exact opposite of how corporations do it. And then this is how I intend to ban usury. I am banning usury in my field, in my
yes,
sphere,
of course,
and
you
then
can
I
say,
will expand and multiply the sphere,
yeah,
expand it
but
by
that's not
acquisition,
enough, is it? If
multiply
you're
it
just saying,
by
I won't use
sampling
credit cards,
and
I won't do
influence.
this or that, because you're just one person, right?
I'm not just one person anymore. I'm not just one.
but the idea, okay. Do you understand the idea in theory? In theory, banning usury would mean the government doing it. That would be the most effective way. So
Oh,
that's
sure,
the
yeah.
ideal, even if you don't think it's going to happen. You can say that.
Well, no, I'm assuming that if we accept that, then we should talk about the most practical way to affect that. And so I'm going
Exactly,
ahead
and
of
it
you
has to be Sharia.
and saying this is the way to affect it through business.
And it has to be
That's
Sharia because I just don't
Sharia
see
might
how
be a
else it
part
can
of
be
that.
done.
I really don't know. That's the problem. Here
Well,
you
well,
are,
well, maybe,
and you could
do
win
you
me
not
over to
understand
that,
how
and you
laws
don't.
work?
I
Do you
understand
not
exactly how they work.
understand?
I understand how they work better than you. I know where they come from. I know that they work before they're written down. I know most laws and the most effective and the most oppressive and the most accurate laws are unwritten, not written. I know all that.
Well, if it's
I know much
unwritten,
more than
it's
you.
not a law.
That's not true.
Name one. Name one unwritten law that is more
Um,
powerful than written law.
Well, I mean, up until recently, you couldn't say Jew. That was unwritten law. It's one example. Um,
Well, it never stopped me. I didn't know I couldn't say Jew.
you can't offend your employer. It's usually those laws are more specific to people in their particular situations. One of the things is
Yeah,
you're not supposed to
employees.
talk badly about America if you're conservative. There's many ones.
Well, yeah,
It's hard to, because they're unwritten, they're more effective and they're harder to then put into words
yeah,
for people
it's
to follow.
self-censorship.
Yeah, I mean
And
that's how
and it
law
took the
works.
courage of people prepared to say these words to finally get it. I mean, Nick Fuentes, he didn't stop, he didn't shut up. So he showed a
Yeah, he
kind of
seems like a good
leadership and
guy. I like him.
consistency.
Yeah, I like him. He's a good guy. He's a good example of, like, I think pure, chaste men are better leaders, and he's not even married. So and he's,
So
according to
you're
his
saying
testimony, pure. So I think that's great. I think he'd be a great leader. I'm glad to have somebody that can
you,
tell me
you
who to vote for, because I haven't cared to vote for a number of years.
well, I don't think you will be in a position to vote for Nick Fuentes as president, but
No, but
there's
I think
a rival.
he seems to spend a lot of time figuring out. So I think he would give good recommendations on who I should vote for. And I'd be happy to
Well, I
follow
don't
what he
think he has
tells me.
any other policy other than to go on about Jews. But
No, that's not
E.
true. He has a
Michael
lot. He has a
Jones.
ton. He's very, he's got a lot to say about politics in general. It's not, no, he's got much more than that.
So
I mean,
what would
just
you
from a
say?
brief exposure to him. Huh?
So what would you say he talks about apart from Jews?
He talks a lot about the individual politicians in America and what they're doing and what their history is, and he will specifically oppose them. He talks a lot about the unity of kind of the poor average man. He says white, but I mean, there's a lot of people that aren't white in that. And then how they can affect politics, by acting as a block, by being cohesive. He's very, very practical in the political field, which, like I said, I don't think it's the most important field, but I'm glad somebody's figured it out. Because one of
Do
the
you
things
know
that
that?
causes the problems is how complex and confusing it is. I go to the ballot box, I have no idea who I'm voting for, so I've never heard of these people before, and those are the most important people. So I just end up voting against all the women. That's how I get it.
Mhm. So
You
E. Michael Jones or Nick Fuentes?
Michael Jones is better, for a fact. I'd love if they would get along, talk to each other and stuff. I mean, it's hard because you find one good boomer. It's like some of the most virtuous men I know are boomers. And my wife was like really upset about the boomer generation. And I pointed out that one man we knew was a boomer. And it's like, whoa. And that changed her mind because you don't even realize what they are. And so I think it takes a while before you can trust. You get into such a habit of being abused and neglected by your own fathers that it's hard to trust an older man. But yeah, I think Michael Jones is wiser, and I think he's better in a lot of ways. He's obviously not an active, like he's not out there doing like what Nick Fuentes is doing. So I think that
Well,
make a
Nick
great
Fuentes
partner.
has a much bigger channel, but I think
Well, it's not just that.
E. Michael Jones is
You
very
know,
energetic.
Nick Fuentes is a politician by nature, clearly. Michael Jones is a writer. So Michael Jones
A
has just got
lecturer.
more, and a historian. He's got more of a complex understanding of things. Nick Fuentes is more practical, more immediate, and more active.
Mm. And more appealing to younger people. I fear a lot of people don't really understand what E. Michael Jones is saying because they haven't got the patience to read, from the beginning to the end of his essays. And maybe
Nick
he
Fuentes
does.
does.
Hmm?
He reads books. That's another thing. It helps that he's not married because he can read books.
Yes. So, um,
I should probably get going.
yeah, yeah.
Well, God bless you, Miss Todd.
Thank you for coming. I think it has been a constructive conversation. We did talk about, well, the usual things that we talk about. And yes,
I think
thank
you're
you,
an
Nathaniel.
honorary. I think you're an honorary American woman because you are exactly the type of woman I am used to dealing with. So God bless you. I think we'll really help each other out, because there's nobody that tempts me to sin more than a woman that acts the way you do, and I'm always needing to grow in patience, and 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 women like you need to be put in their place, is with my experience. So, and I've never been really
Well,
happy about doing it.
well, I'm glad we were able to have these conversations despite not completely agreeing, and I think that that must be the way um, to the future, that we can have civil disagreement. So thank you, Nathaniel, and may we have other conversations in the future.
I do.
And
I mean, I disagree a little bit. I think women shouldn't talk in public as much. It's my opinion.
well, until they ban me from YouTube, I guess I will be exercising my right.
Yeah, there's a lot of women I'd shut up before I shut you up. So there's always
Well,
that.
you can choose to listen to the ones who are worth listening to and ignoring the ones who aren't, with, maybe
God bless you,
skimpy
Miss Dove.
clothing.
From the bottom of my heart, I love you. I think we're doing good work together.
Yes, I think so too. And may I wish you a happy Christmas, Nathaniel.
Merry Christmas. Yeah, it's coming
Okay,
quick.
thank
All
you.
right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.